1.
At 8 months pregnant, I suddenly received an emergency alert from my husband, Bolton Bellinger's car system. Following the GPS location, I rushed to the parking lot, only to find Bolton and my stepsister, Shannon, making out inside his car. Bolton, if my sister ever finds out that all 10 of her miscarriages happened because you sent her embryos to me for experiments, do you think she'd hate us to death? Bolton let out a cold laugh. She's nothing but a breeding mouse mother for our lab rats. So, what if she finds out? Everything I have belongs to you and the baby. And once she delivers the one she's carrying, once it meets your experiment's requirements, I'll have the doctor tie her tubes. Then I'll use her infertility as the reason to kick her out with nothing. As he spoke, the movement of his body quickened. I stood frozen, watching the scene unfold as tears streamed down my cheeks. From the very beginning, my marriage was nothing but a lie. Even my children, every one of them, were nothing but experimental subjects to them. If that's how they want to play, I'm not going to let them get what they want. Right then, I made 3 decisions. First, divorce Bolton, resign from his company, and leave him forever. Second, get an abortion and completely ruin Bolton's plans. Third, uncover the truth, make Bolton and Shannon pay for what they've done, and avenge my babies. But just as I signed the termination of pregnancy consent form and the doctor was preparing to proceed, my phone suddenly rang. Amybeth, a man's voice snapped. The child in your belly is mine. I forbid you to abort my child. That voice. It wasn't just anyone. It was Gibeon Crest, my childhood sweetheart. He'd moved abroad before I entered college, and after that, we lost contact. There was no way the baby in my belly could be his. Gibeon, do you even hear what you're saying? My voice tightened. On the other end, he chuckled. Amybeth, did you forget the night I came back 8 months ago? He asked. That night, he explained, you were the first woman I slept with. The baby is definitely mine. I already performed an amniocentesis paternity test. If you want proof, I can send it to you right now. Hearing the certainty in his voice, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. What are you planning to do, Amybeth? He asked. Listen, I'm not letting the woman carrying my child stay with another man. Hearing that, I replied with a serious tone. 1 month from now, I'll be single. You can come pick me up. I'm leaving for Monaco, but I have 2 conditions. First, you must work with the Venus Group to go after the Bellinger Corporation. I want Bolton's company wiped off the map. I want him to lose everything. Second, investigate the truth behind Shannon's experiments and make both of them pay. I want justice for my children. He let out a short laugh and agreed without hesitation. Deal, I'll give you 1 month to wrap up that worthless marriage. 1 month from now, I'll come take you myself. He didn't give me a chance to argue. He hung up immediately. I tore the signed pre-abortion forms in half, canceled the appointment, and walked out of the hospital. 1 month later, my resignation and divorce would both take effect. I would leave with Gibeon, but I wouldn't leave quietly. I would make them pay for hurting me and my children.
1.
Amybeth's POV. Attorney Powell, I want to divorce Bolton and resign from his company. Please draft both agreements for me. The corporate lawyer frowned slightly, his tone heavy. Ma'am, marriage isn't easy, and you're highly respected in the company. You and the CEO have always seemed deeply in love. Making such a sudden decision. Did Sir Bolton do something recently that upset you? Do you need me to talk to him? He still cares about you very much, you know. Hearing that, I let out a cold laugh. Before I decided to divorce him and resign, I had genuinely believed we loved each other. Even though I'd been pregnant 10 times and lost all 10, I never stopped wanting a child that belonged to the 2 of us. Bolton had looked at me countless times with heartache, even blaming everything on himself. I thought he loved me more than his own life. But then yesterday, when an emergency alert popped up from his car system, I rushed to the parking lot, only to see him and Shannon making out in the car. The truth unfolded right before my eyes. I lost all 10 babies simply because Shannon needed test subjects, practically lab rats. And their father handed those lives over without hesitation. They didn't even want to spare the ones still in my belly. They planned everything, stripping me of everything I had and kicking me out with nothing. But now that I know the truth, the ones left with nothing will be them. Thinking of that, I nodded firmly. Attorney Powell, there's no need. I've thought everything through. As for the divorce and the resignation, he'll agree. But before both become official, I added, I need you to keep this confidential from everyone else. The lawyer hesitated, but soon, he placed the drafted resignation and divorce agreement in front of me. I thanked him and took both documents into the CEO's office. I didn't knock. When I walked in, Bolton and Shannon were hugging each other. The moment they lifted their heads, their lips had just separated. Shannon gave me a fake smile, explaining, Amybeth, don't misunderstand. I almost slipped just now. Bolton just supported me a little. Bolton immediately walked over, naturally pulling me into his arms. Babe, I missed you so much. Don't stay out so long next time. They were perfectly coordinated. After speaking, Shannon headed toward the door, her lipstick almost completely worn off. It was all so obvious. I had simply been too blind to ever notice. Before she reached the door, she turned back, mockery in her eyes. Oh, right, Amybeth. Your baby is already 8 months along. The Venus Group project you've been handling should be handed over to me. Bolton already agreed. After all, I did spend quite a bit of effort persuading him. As she spoke, she hinted suggestively and deliberately licked her lips. Bolton's body stiffened as he held me, and I clearly felt his arousal. They were flirting right in front of me. I couldn't hold it back anymore. I shoved Bolton away. He frowned, irritation flashing in his eyes, but quickly smoothed into a smile. Amybeth, Shannon has a point. You can't overwork yourself in your condition. And she is the internationally renowned perfumer, Queen. As a perfumer yourself, you should know how extraordinary Queen is. Venus Group only agreed to work with us because of her. So you should hand the project to her, he continued. Honestly, you're not that gifted in perfumery. You should focus on taking care of the baby. A hint of contempt flashed through his gaze. I almost burst out laughing. Shannon actually dared to impersonate me. I am the one and only Queen. If I hadn't joined the Bell&J Corporation back then and brought my own formulas, the company would have gone bankrupt long ago. Because I didn't want to burden Bolton, I never told him my true identity. But I never expected him to believe her nonsense so easily. What he didn't know was that Venus Group knew privately that I am Queen. Once I resign, they will cancel the partnership without hesitation. Conveniently, the signing date is in a month. When the contract falls through, I hope he won't be too shocked. Fine. She can come take over tomorrow. I sneered and agreed, without hesitation. At that moment, Bolton's phone buzzed. It was a text message. When he opened it, it was photos of Shannon wearing lingerie. He quickly turned off the screen, but I'd already seen everything. As his gaze shifted toward me, I acted as though I hadn't seen a thing and handed him the resignation and divorce documents. These need your signature, I said calmly. What documents? Just as he reached to flip them open, his phone rang again. He answered, and Shannon's flirtatious voice came through loud enough for me to hear. Bolton, didn't you look at the photos I sent? I'm waiting for you at our usual place. If you don't come soon, someone else might take your spot. Hearing that, he hurriedly scribbled his name on the documents without even glancing through them. The next second, he shoved me aside without hesitation. My back slammed into the sharp edge of the table. A wave of pain shot straight to my head. My vision blurred from the pain, but he didn't spare me a single glance. I've signed everything, Amybeth. I have something to take care of. I'm leaving now. Just like that, he rushed out the door. I knew where he was going. Back to Shannon to fool around with her again. Sure enough, a few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Bolton lying on top of another woman. I didn't bother reacting. I just saved the photo and booked an appointment for an abortion. I had conceived this child out of love for Bolton. But now that I no longer love him, I cannot bring this child into the world to suffer. While I was signing the pre-procedure documents, my phone suddenly rang. Amybeth, The baby in your belly is mine. I won't allow you to get rid of my child. The man on the other end was Gibeon, my childhood friend. He went abroad before I started college and we lost contact. How could the baby I was carrying be his? Gibeon, do you understand what you're saying? My voice was serious. On the other end of the line came his chuckles. Amybeth, did you forget the night I came back 8 months ago? He asked. That night, he explained, you were the first woman I slept with. The baby is definitely mine. I already did an amniocentesis paternity test. If you want proof, I can send you the results right now. Hearing the certainty in his voice, I finally exhaled in relief. What are you planning to do, Amybeth? Listen, I can't let the woman carrying my child be with another man. Hearing that, I spoke seriously into the phone. After 1 month, I'll be single. You can come pick me up. I'm leaving for Monaco, but I have 2 conditions. First, you must work with Venus Group to go after the Belanger Corporation. I want Belanger Corporation wiped off the map. I want Bolton to lose everything. Second, investigate the truth behind Shannon's experiments and make both of them pay. I want justice for my children. He let out a short laugh and agreed without hesitation. Deal, I'll give you 1 month to wrap up that worthless marriage. 1 month from now, I'll come take you myself. He didn't give me a chance to argue. He hung up immediately. I tore the signed pre-abortion forms in half, canceled the appointment, and walked out of the hospital. 1 month later, my resignation and divorce would both take effect. I would leave with Gibeon, but I wouldn't leave quietly. I would make them pay for hurting me and my children. 2. Amybeth's POV. When I returned to the villa, I hadn't even stepped through the door before hearing Shannon's high-pitched moans echoing inside. Her voice was flirtatious, mixing with Bolton's low, rough breaths. The sound filled the entire villa. The usual place Shannon mentioned turned out to be the house I shared with Bolton. They were actually making out on my favorite bed. Shattered pieces of our wedding photos were scattered all over the bedroom floor. Everything that once proved Bolton and I had loved each other had become props in their affair. Just then, still lost in her pleasure, Shannon sensed my presence. She looked straight at my furious face and flashed a triumphant smile. Then she moaned even louder, as if deliberately putting on a show for me. My fists tightened. I desperately wanted to storm in. But right now, the divorce papers had only just been submitted to the clerk's office. If I made a scene and tipped him off, getting out cleanly would be much harder. With that in mind, I turned around and headed back downstairs to the villa's entrance. Her smug expression still floated in front of my eyes as I expressionlessly dialed Bolton. He picked up after 3 rings. Bolton, I'm back. Can you come get me at the door? I think I'm running a fever. He cursed under his breath on the other end, and I could hear Shannon whining unhappily beside him. But in the end, he still agreed.
Fine.
Wait for me downstairs. I actually have something to tell you. Soon, he rushed down the stairs. He was clearly in a hurry, marks on his skin barely covered, his shirt half-buttoned. The moment he saw me, he said bluntly, Shannon's not feeling well. She needs new data for her experiments. Since we still have your old fragrance studio here, I told her she could stay for a while. As he stepped closer, the scent that belonged only to Shannon hit me. Thick, cloying, suffocating. They had cheated in front of me again and again, treating me like a fool. And now they wanted her to move in? Before I could respond, Shannon appeared at the top of the stairs, her body covered in red marks, walking toward us openly and without shame. With a smug smile, she said, Amybeth, your husband really is so kind. He's letting me stay here for a bit. I'll be sure to properly return the favor. Her voice dripped with seduction, and the way she looked at Bolton was downright provocative. I clearly heard Bolton swallow beside me. I don't agree, I said coldly. My fragrance studio isn't for other people to use. Shannon can just rent a place outside. Bolton's expression darkened instantly. Shannon hurried downstairs and clung to his sleeve, pretending to be deeply wronged. Bolton, did I do something wrong? Why is my sister treating me like this? Maybe I should just leave. Then she turned around as if to walk out. Bolton quickly pulled her back and looked at me with disappointment. Amybeth, when did you become so petty? Shannon just wants to stay for a short while. Why won't you agree? If you really care that much, then you can move out for now. Your due date is coming up anyway. I'll arrange a hospital for you. His tone was calm, but the meaning was crystal clear. If I didn't let Shannon move in, I could get out. And with me out of the way, dealing with the child in my belly would be even easier for them. Okay, I said quietly. I'll leave now. Temporary tolerance was the first step toward revenge anyway. The more arrogant they were today, the more miserable they would be a month from now. I didn't look at either of them again. I turned and went upstairs. The bedroom was a mess, rumpled sheets, overwhelming stench. Acting as if it didn't bother me, I began packing. That was when I realized all the gifts commemorating our 7-year marriage had been smashed or torn apart and tossed aside. A stabbing pain shot through my chest. Even if he no longer cared about me, I never imagined he'd use our memories as props while having sex with Shannon. They came upstairs as I continued packing, silently watching. Seeing my expression, Shannon rushed to mock me. Oh, I'm sorry about this, Amybeth. This was all my dog's fault. I didn't expect it to cause such trouble. I feel so bad. If you want, I can go beat it for you later. She casually pushed all the blame onto her toy poodle. I ignored her and kept packing. When I reached the last drawer, I realized the emerald pendant my late father gave me was gone. I jerked my head toward Bolton. Where's my emerald pendant? He frowned impatiently. Amybeth, haven't you caused enough trouble? Shannon's dog didn't do it on purpose. And besides, these things aren't important, he added. If they're damaged, they're damaged. Why make such a big deal? He lumped all our memories, our entire marriage, into a pile of unimportant things. But I didn't look away. My eyes stayed locked on him, and his brows tightened further. Then Shannon suddenly said, Amybeth, maybe check under the bed? Maybe earlier, things got a little intense, and it fell there. I shot her a vicious glare. She knew perfectly well that the pendant was the only thing my father gave me. I swept under the bed with a broom, and the broken pieces of my emerald pendant rolled out. The moment I saw it, something in me snapped. I lunged forward and slapped Shannon hard across the face. How dare you? How dare you smash it? Bolton immediately grabbed my wrist. His voice dropped cold. Enough! He shoved me away roughly, and I stumbled back and fell onto the bed. He hurried to help Shannon up, and when he turned to look at me, his eyes were filled with disdain. Amybeth, I must have treated you too well before, letting you develop such an arrogant temper. You even raised your hand against your own younger sister. Then he suddenly turned off the bedroom lights. My heart lurched instantly. For the next few days, stay in the bedroom and reflect. I'll have the power cut. I stared at him in disbelief. Bolton, you know I have claustrophobia, but he glanced at me indifferently. I know. That's exactly why this counts as a lesson for you. He continued, when you finally realize your mistake, apologize to Shannon and agree to let her stay here, I'll let you out. With that, he mercilessly grabbed my phone and then helped Shannon to her feet, turning to walk away. Out of his sight, she shot me a mocking look, her smile flickering as she pressed close to him. I struggled toward the door, but the bodyguards behind him suddenly slammed it shut. The room was instantly swallowed by darkness. I trembled and sank to the floor, my breathing quick and shallow. Let me out. I won't bother you. Help. Someone. Please. But no one heard my faint cries. The last thing I felt before passing out was the taste of my own tears sliding down my cheeks. 3. Amybeth's POV. The pitch-black room made it impossible for me to feel time passing. I had no idea how many days I'd been locked up. All I knew was that every time I woke up crying, I would pass out again, and that cycle repeated 10 whole times. Just when I thought I was going to die in there, the bedroom door clicked open. I instinctively shut my eyes. What a disgusting mess. Bolton said, he cut your power, not your water. How could you not keep yourself clean? Go wash up in the bathroom right now. Don't come out until you're presentable. A voice dripping with revulsion filled the room. I lifted my head and saw my mother. She stood in the doorway looking regal and elegant, but the way she stared at me was like I was trash. She only cared about whether I met her standards, never about the fact that I had claustrophobia. I looked at her numbly. I knew that if I didn't obey, she'd just send people in to pin me down and force me to comply. That had happened more times than I could count. After I finally cleaned myself up and came out, she narrowed her eyes, gave me one quick, displeased once-over, then coldly ordered the bodyguards to drag me to the living room. The villa's living room was huge, yet my gaze landed immediately on the body lying in the center, a dead dog. It was Shannon's poodle. Next to the dog's corpse, someone was kneeling. I frowned, surprised to see it was one of the servants who'd always been kind to me. Mom swept a cold look over the servant. "Tell me, who told you to do it?" Off to the side, Shannon was crying as if her heart were breaking, while Bolton held her gently, comforting her. The servant glanced at me, terror flickering with a trace of guilt in her eyes. Under my mother's threatening stare, she finally raised a shaking finger, pointing at me. "And Mom, Amybeth told me to do it. She said the dog destroyed something important to her and had to pay with its life. Please, I'm begging you, spare me. I was only following her orders. I didn't mean it." She rambled in panic, practically ready to bang her head against the floor at their feet. The moment Shannon heard that, she let out a sharp sob. She sniffled pitifully and said, "Amybeth, if you were upset with me, you could have just come at me. Why did you take it out on my dog? I know the little one did something wrong and I already apologized to you. If you really needed a life in return, you could have taken mine. Why did you have to hurt him?" Her tears flowed even harder. Bolton's and my mother's eyes immediately hardened as they stared at me. After Bolton finished soothing Shannon, he finally turned toward me with a cold expression. "Amybeth, I thought locking you in the room would make you calm down and reflect. I didn't expect you to actually hire someone to hurt a dog." Disappointment clouded his eyes. "I'm your husband. I can't watch you keep making mistakes. Take responsibility for what you've done. Apologize. Apologize to Shannon's dog and make up for what you did." My mother glared at me with the same disgust. "I knew from the beginning you were no good. You always targeted your sister, and now you won't even spare her dog. I agree with Bolton, if you don't get properly punished, who knows what you'll do next." Their words and their stares cut into me so sharply it felt like I couldn't breathe. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Let me get this straight. While I was locked in a room with no phone, terrified because of my claustrophobia, I supposedly instructed someone to kill Shannon's dog? I'll say this once. I didn't do it. And I'm not apologizing to a dog. As far as I'm concerned, the dog wasn't at fault. Someone else was. Bolton, if you don't believe me, check the surveillance footage. I didn't even look at my mother. Even if she knew the truth, she would still blind herself and take Shannon's side. My mother always had. I stopped hoping for anything from her a long time ago. My words seemed to shake Bolton for a moment. He frowned, as if weighing whether I was telling the truth. Sensing that, Shannon quickly tugged on his sleeve, her voice dripping with false concern. "Forget it, if Amybeth doesn't want to apologize, then let her be. My poodle was with me for years, but my sister is still more important. I know I can't compare to her. If she wants to hurt my dog, I can't stop her. If she wants to hurt me, I guess I deserve it." The moment she said that, Mom snapped toward me. "Look at what you've driven your sister to say. First her dog, then who knows what's next. If Bolton doesn't want to punish you, then I will do it as your mother." Her face twisted with rage. "Today, you'll apologize whether you want it or not." Bolton frowned at me. "Mom's already said her piece. Just do it. It'll calm her and Shannon down." I will never admit to something I didn't do. I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave without hesitation. 4. Amybeth's POV. Shannon immediately blocked my path. She reached out to grab me, and I reflexively shook her hand off. She smirked in triumph, then deliberately threw herself backward with a heavy thud. "Shannon." Bolton shoved me aside and rushed toward her, carefully helping her up as she cried out in pain. His push was so forceful that I hit the floor hard. If I hadn't curled around my belly on instinct, the consequences would have been unimaginable. I already knew Bolton only saw the child in my belly as Shannon's experimental subject, but even so, a cold tremor ran through me. Before I could say anything, my mother suddenly marched forward and slapped me across the face. The sharp crack echoed. Blood quickly spilled from the corner of my mouth, my vision spinning. "Bitch," she shouted. "I just warned you, and you still dared to lay a hand on Shannon. If anything happens to the baby she's carrying, just you wait." Her face twisted into something monstrous. Only then did her words sink in. Everyone already knew Shannon was pregnant with Bolton's child. Everyone except me. I was her biological daughter, yet she chose to stand with Shannon. At that moment, my heart went cold and hollow. By then, Bolton had already coaxed Shannon into calming down. Then he walked over to me, expression blank, ignoring my bleeding mouth and my 8-month rounded belly. Without the slightest hesitation, he yanked me up from the floor. The pain made me gasp, but he didn't care. The next second, he forced me down on my knees right in front of the dead body of that little toy poodle. Before I could even struggle, he slammed my head down. "Bolton, let go of me." I forced the words out, my throat tight and trembling. He only gave me a cold glance before pressing down even harder. With a sickening thud, my forehead smashed against the floor. The hit made my head spin, nausea rising uncontrollably as I dry heaved. When he finally released me, I collapsed onto the floor like a dead fish. He looked down at me, pathetic, heaving, covered in humiliation, and ordered the bodyguards. "I'm taking Shannon to the hospital. Keep an eye on this woman. Make her apologize to the puppy 99 times, then make her dig a grave and bury him herself. And remember, she's not allowed to use any tools." He gave me one last calm look. "Amybeth, you need this lesson. Cooperate with them. Don't make things harder than they already are." Then he carried Shannon out of the villa. My mother, still fussing over Shannon, followed them without looking back. I shut my eyes tightly. I hadn't even managed to get up when the bodyguards grabbed my shoulders and forced me down again. No one spoke. Only the sound of my knees slamming against the empty villa floor echoed again and again. By the time warm blood gushed down my face, the ordeal finally ended. I lay there, my forehead torn open, the wound so shredded it was almost raw meat. Blood streamed down my cheek and dripped onto the floor, grotesque and terrifying. "Ma'am, you still need to go to the backyard to dig the grave. Please forgive our disrespect." They dragged me out to the garden and forced my hands into the dirt, making me dig one handful at a time. When everything was done, my hands were a bloody mess, bones showing through torn skin. Shaking violently, I used the only finger I could still move, my thumb, to dial an emergency call. The moment I finished giving the address, my strength finally gave out. I collapsed on the ground and lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. Bolton was nowhere in sight. The attending doctor told me that I was lucky they got me here just in time. The baby was still alive, but I needed at least half a month of hospitalization before I could be discharged. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was an updated video on Shannon's Instagram. I didn't want to look, but my hand slipped and the video opened. In it, Bolton gently kissed her belly, his eyes full of tenderness. The caption read, "Baby, with a daddy who loves you this much, you'll be so happy when you're born." A shock went through me. Even while I was unconscious, bleeding, fighting for my life, Bolton never stayed by my side. This video shattered the very last sliver of hope I had left. A single tear slid from the corner of my eye. I swore it would be the last tear I ever shed for Bolton. I picked up my phone and sent Gibeon a message along with the hospital address. "Gibeon, I can't wait a month anymore. Just half a month. Come pick me up then." A second later, his reply came. "Okay." Also, about Bolton and Shannon causing your multiple miscarriages. "We've already found evidence. We're securing everything now. What do you want to do next?" Seeing his message brought a faint warmth back to my chest. I typed my reply. "The day you come to pick me up, we'll execute everything we planned. In half a month, I'll be leaving this city forever and end my marriage with Bolton once and for all. The fire of vengeance burned in my eyes. This time, it would be for me and for the children they stole from me.
5.
Amybeth's POV. After nearly half a month recovering in the hospital, I was finally well enough to be discharged. Instead of returning to the villa, I rented a place on my own. During those 2 weeks, Bolton never once reached out to me. Instead, it was Shannon who kept messaging me. She sent photos of him taking her to watch sunsets, going to the beach, kissing under the Eiffel Tower, and holding hands under the Matterhorn. While I lay in a hospital bed, they spent those 2 weeks living their happiest lives. Every day, right on schedule, Shannon would send me photos of them in bed. She thought those filthy things would hurt me, that they would break me. But she was wrong. I'm no longer the woman who clung to loving Bolton. Very soon, they'll pay for everything they've done. With practiced ease, I saved every single photo. All of them would become bullets for my revenge. I thought I would keep living quietly like this until the divorce papers were finalized and I could leave. But at sunset that day, a group of bodyguards suddenly appeared in front of me. My phone chimed. It was a message from Bolton. Amybeth, you've been gone for half a month. Enough with the drama. Come to the Shadowstone auctions now. I've already sent my men to pick you up. My brows tightened. Before I could respond, the bodyguards grabbed my arm.
Ma'am, apologies.
We're just following Sir Bolton's orders. Please cooperate. I struggled, but in the next instant, everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was already inside the auction house. Shannon sat right in front of me, practically merging with Bolton's shadow as they leaned close together. The second she saw me wake, her lips curved into an unreadable smile. Amybeth, you're finally awake. I was worried you'd miss the most important moment. I furrowed my brows tightly. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. The next second, the host slammed the auction gavel. Next, our main event. The fragrance formulas of the world-famous perfumer queen. 10 in total, all top secret. Starting bid, 1 million each. My breath caught. I snapped my gaze to Shannon. You really put my formulas up for auction? Those 10 formulas were locked in my fragrance studio at home. Clearly, she'd found them and didn't hesitate for a second before selling them. Shannon covered her mouth and laughed. Amybeth, what nonsense are you spouting? These are my formulas. After all, I'm queen. My eyes widened in rage. Beside her, Bolton looked at me with nothing but annoyance. I didn't even have time to argue. I raised my paddle, ready to buy my own formulas back. Every sheet was something I poured my heart and soul into. Even if I can create more and better ones in the future, these are irreplaceable. Infinite bidding. Box 888 has chosen infinite bidding, the host shouted excitedly. I didn't have the patience to fight for each formula one by one, so I simply chose infinite bidding for all of them. Shannon let out a sharp laugh. Really, Amybeth, infinite bidding? Do you even have that much money? They'll need to verify your funds soon. Don't embarrass the Bellingers, she said meaningfully. I snorted. I have enough money to buy this entire auction house. Unlike someone who calls herself queen, but probably can't even afford 1 million without someone else footing the bill. My sarcasm instantly ignited her fury. She turned to Bolton, clinging to his sleeve. Bolton, I only brought out my formulas so more people could appreciate their beauty. And I wanted all the auction proceeds donated to charity. But if Amybeth interferes, doesn't that ruin everything? She even shook his arm, nudging him. Bolton's gaze softened. He nodded at her dotingly. The next second, an alarm beeped on the verification machine in front of me. Ma'am, an auction staff member said stiffly, the bank card you presented has been frozen. Do you have another one? My stomach dropped. He actually went this far for her? I quickly pulled out another card. Also frozen. Every card I tried, frozen. The staff's expression darkened. Shannon burst into wild laughter behind me. Amybeth, what's wrong? Looks like you really need our help. This auction house could use some entertainment. How about this? If you take off one piece of clothing, I'll give you 1 million. You should have enough money before you're fully naked. Her voice dripped with mockery. Beside her, Bolton calmly peeled apples for her, completely unbothered. My entire body shook with rage. The stares around me were sharp as blades. The staff noticed Bolton's silence, and the way they treated me immediately changed. In an instant, several people surrounded me. Hands grabbed at me from every direction. "Ma'am, since you chose infinite bidding, you must pay somehow. Why not follow Miss Shannon's suggestion?" They yanked, and my coat was ripped away, leaving me in only a strapless dress. I stared, stunned, struggling with all my strength, but they held me down. Just when I reached the edge of despair, the door to the VIP box was kicked open. Masked kidnappers stormed in openly. The staff scowled until they saw the guns. They immediately dropped to the ground. Soon, everyone was dragged into the main hall. Even Bolton, who normally kept himself calm, lost his composure. The leader, a tall man with his face covered, let out a manic laugh, then spoke coldly. "I hear tonight is lively, full of wealthy people. So here's the deal. Each of you will transfer 50 million. Then I'll randomly pick a few people and strap bombs on them. If you don't pay, you die. If you do pay, well, pray you're lucky." Chaos broke out as the kidnappers moved quickly. Bolton clenched his jaw and wanted to fight, but there were too many kidnappers and guns. In the end, he paid the 50 million. He also paid Shannon's. I was at the back of the line. Just as Shannon let out a breath, thinking she was safe, a kidnapper grabbed her arm. "Your body's perfect for carrying a bomb. Stay." With one sentence, Shannon went pale. She grabbed Bolton desperately, her eyes pleading. "Bolton, save me. I'm carrying your baby." He frowned hard, about to negotiate when Shannon's gaze darted to me. "Bolton, use Amybeth instead. She's got a tough life. She won't die." Her face was full of excitement, as if wanting to push me to the kidnappers immediately. Bolton said calmly, "I'll pay another 50 million to save her." My heart jumped, then died entirely, because he wasn't pointing at me. He was pointing at Shannon. The kidnapper looked me up and down and grinned wickedly. "Well, ma'am, blame your bad luck. Someone else has money to save his wife. If only her husband did too. But hey, strapping a bomb on an 8-month pregnant woman? I've never seen that before." His inhuman laughter filled the hall. My hands and feet were tied, and despair swallowed me whole. As I passed Bolton, he didn't look at me once. He just held Shannon tightly. I let out a cold laugh. Behind me, his voice sounded. "Amybeth, wait. I'll come back for you." He didn't wait for my response. He carried the unharmed Shannon out without looking back. Even at the end, he still chose her. My chest tore open in pain, but my face remained blank. I would never let Shannon take pleasure in my suffering again. After everyone who paid left the auction house, I was tied alone in a corner, surrounded by explosives. A few minutes later, an explosion ripped the entire building apart. Even though I tried to get as far from the bombs as possible, the shockwaves still blew me off my feet. My lungs screamed for air. I tried to move, but debris pinned my legs. I couldn't breathe. Blood seeped from my body quickly. Just before I lost consciousness, I saw several tall figures striding toward me through the ruins. "Amybeth, it's me. I'm here. The revenge plan you wanted has been launched. Hold on." Gibeon's voice echoed in my ears. The next second, the world completely fell into darkness.